TV here, but I can see it now.
All right, so I think we're live on YouTube now.
Oh, wow.
So Jeff, you were talking to Thomas the other day a bit about, Len for this story that he's been working on. When you think about him and, you spent 4 years as a teammate with him, just what stands out to you the most?
Probably it's two things. It's character. Clearly, that was beyond his athletic prowess for sure. But we all saw the prowess, obviously. But his character literally was amazing. And then when you correlate that with his ability to have grown and learned the game, it's just been amazing. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, and never afraid of the moment. That's what I always liked. Never afraid of the moment.
So, I mean, this game, both you and Lenny were sophomores. You had played against Carolina before. You played against Michael Jordan before. How big a game, sort of, in the context of the season was this? This is like early, mid-January, I believe.
Yeah, huge game. Any game in the ACC, watch this dunk. Any game in the ACC was a huge game, but this one was huge. Just because of obviously the magnifying dealing with Carolina. Every time we saw them, especially at Coldfield House, it's just a huge game. And when you think about before the game started, and Gerard can attest to this, you may know of a player's prowess, all that good stuff. But if you are a player, which Lenny was, once you got on the court and you put on your shoes and strapped up, no one, if you had any heart, no one was above you. And that's the way Lenny played.
I remember talking to Derek Lewis about this sort of thing. He said to play at this level, you have to have an ego. Oh, there's the dunk.
Oh, sorry. I'm talking early. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, the obviously like a live TV in the house would be ahead of where we're at on the stream. Yeah. But to get somewhere that's quiet in my house, I had to get away from any of the TV. So
yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting ready to do.
It's so weird for me. Like I've always, my whole life, I've grown up with like they had the score bug on the screen. And so in this game, they'll just like occasionally flash it.
Oh, yeah. Things are different.
I mean, and then just watching an entire game without a 3-point line.
Yeah, what was it like playing without a 3-point line?
So it's a little different. They tested the 3-point line in ACC. My sophomore year was my freshman year. I think it's sophomore year for a little, just in the ACC only. And then I'm not sure if you guys knew that history. And then they took it out. But it was a little different. But we didn't operate based on data metrics. We operated on just if you could shoot it, you shot it. If you drove to the basket, you drove to the basket. So it wasn't analytics as they are today.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Walt.
What's happening? How you doing?
W, man.
Oh, man, I didn't have it on my computer. I didn't get an email, man, so I'm holding my phone. I don't know how long we're going to do this. I can't see you. I can only – oh, okay, I see you guys now. All right. I can see, one at a time. I'm trying to figure that part out.
There's a thing that says gallery view.
And you can see it through the
gallery?
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, man. Technology, man.
In the top right corner.
Only thing I got is okay. I mean, only thing I have is Leave or Zoom or something like that. So, I mean, it's on my phone.
Oh, it's on your phone. I think you can only see one person at a time.
Yeah.
That's why this sucks. I mean, can somebody send me an email?
Yeah, I can try resending it to you.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a bit about the book that, you guys had released, on lessons from Lenny.
Yeah, man, it was just me and Tony, we would talk about Len often. So just thought it'd be a good idea to share with the masses his impact on us. Many know about the circumstances surrounding his death, but I believe few know the impact beyond that that he had on the community and the University of Maryland. We talk about the laws that were impacted because of his death, how the university, how they changed in terms of the resources for student athletes. And so we just talk about, sort of like the university and their rebirth because of the circumstances with bias. And we also, so it's more than just a basketball story. It's a human interest as well. There's other things that he impacted well beyond the game itself.
What has it been like for you guys just, watching this Jordan series and, just a lot of people I feel like have brought up Len Bias and just what he could have been if he was in the, NBA on that Celtics team, going up against the Bulls. Like, have you guys thought about that at all? And how has it been like just watching that back?
For me, it's been interesting seeing that piece because I started reflecting back on that time frame as I was heavy in the middle of it. Obviously, it was my years. And you start thinking about, I know for me, I started thinking about especially the second series of Last Dance. I started thinking about Boston Celtics and that squad that they had, and that Lenny was going to be a part of that squad. And it was continuous. They would continue to build on that squad based on Lenny. And I started reflecting then, and that Last Dance, it's deep. It takes you back to some good memories. And then obviously the one bad scenario based on the mistake that or choice that Lenny had made in the death of Lenny.
The thing that always stuck with me was that Len was one of the few super prospects. He was the number 2 pick, and he was joining a team that won 67 games and the title, and just at a perfect time for it because Larry Bird he'd been in the league, I think 7-8 years, but he was a little older than that because he went into college late. And so he was in the back half of his prime. Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish were in the back half of their primes. And so it was kind of like what the Spurs had a few years ago with Kawhi Leonard, is where they made a sort of second run of finals with those guys being a lot older and Kawhi Leonard being 21, 22. And then ultimately Leonard, as those guys got even older and retired and left, Leonard kind of took center stage with that team. And I feel like that's what everyone at least expected Len to be. And then what some of the earlier Last Dance episodes kind of illustrate is there are a bunch of these teams in the East. It's Jordan's Bulls that at this point are on the come up, and Isaiah's Pistons, even the Cavs with Brad Daugherty, a couple others. Like it's that sort of group, and Boston was supposed to stay a part of that group for a lot longer. And I think the tricky thing, I mean, it's so easy to say we wouldn't remember Jordan the same if Len had been in Boston, but I wonder if we remember the Pistons the same at all, or even Olajuwon and the Rockets. It would just all be a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, when hindsight clearly is 2020, and when you look back, you just never know. I know I hear so many comparisons in regards to Mike and Lenny, and I'm not sure that is an accurate comparison, but I will tell you this: we would have seen a player that would have been impactful throughout that game, throughout the NBA, and actually an impactful as a teammate as well. We would have definitely seen that. We would probably have seen the rise of the second rise of marketing, because obviously Mike was the first, but I think Lenny's choice and being with Boston, the marketing game would have changed as well, yet again.
So, Walt, you had said, I think you had told me when we, talked, whenever we did one of our first interviews together, and you were talking about Len, you had talked about how you first saw him play when you actually went to see Maryland play North Carolina, right?
Yeah, my dad is from North Carolina, so he's a big Tar Heel fan, and so yeah, we went to a Terp Carolina game, and at that time, actually, I was probably more of a Georgetown Hoya fan. Up to that point, actually,
Truth.
John Thompson and those guys,
Yeah.
man. I was really into the Hoyas until I saw Len Bias, and so I just remember seeing that jump shot, man. You know, uh, during the course of the game, you just watching the game, and then all of a sudden he raise up and he shoot it, and
Yeah.
it just caught my attention. And I started following him ever since then. And then all of a sudden, I was a Terp fan.
So how did that go in games like this when, they faced each other again, Maryland and UNC, your dad rooting for North Carolina and you rooting for Maryland?
Oh man, it was great to cheer against him, especially when we got the win. I remember that big game down in North Carolina where Bias just had a fantastic game. I was actually in North Carolina with my family. I have a lot of family down there, so virtually the whole room were Tar Heel fans. So that was a fantastic night for me.
Glad to be a part of that, Walt. Glad to be a part of that, sir.
Yeah, bro.
Absolutely.
What was it like just watching the two of them, go up against each other to see, Michael Jordan versus Len Bias in these college games for you guys?
I mean, for me, Jordan was just coming into his own, and you knew that he was a great player and that he was on his way. But I just, watching Len Bias, it was just something different to me. I was just excited to see what his future was going to be as well at the next level. He just had so much in his game in the college ranks, and so it would have been great to just see him his off the dribble game develop more and just adding things to it and seeing what he'd become. I was just talking about this the other day. I just think the game was hurt a little bit in terms of you watching Michael Jordan when he went to the NBA. You started to see guys mimic his game, and you start to see a lot of guys where you say, hey, he reminds me of a Michael Jordan early in his career. But you don't see that about Len Bias. I can't ever recall seeing a player and going to myself, saying to myself, oh, that dude reminds me of Len Bias. I mean, he was just one of a kind. I just don't see a guy who mimicked that type of the way he played the game. And so it would have been interesting to see what that element had happened if he's played in the NBA and you start to see guys try to copy his style of play and what type of impact that would have had on the future generation.
Walt, that's interesting that you make that statement. I concur with you 1,000% on two points. One, there hasn't been a player to mimic Lenny. You're totally right about that. And when you think about that, that's interesting by itself. That's actually amazing. The second piece, which a lot of people don't realize and don't use this correlation, on that Carolina team, when we were playing that, Mike was not our focal point. He really wasn't. Our focal point was really actually more Sam Perkins and a couple of other players that were on their team as well. Mike was not, and Kenny Smith, believe it or not, Mike was not that focal point just yet, because remember, his scoring prowess wasn't at the point that it became. But I will tell you this, defensively, he was a concern because he was literally a hawk on defense. So I agree with you. I remember one time I actually in this game, it may come about, I was dribbling the ball and Mike fouled me. And he started talking. I told him, I said, you were not going to get that ball. I would have gotten off as a foul first. Because I knew if he had gotten it, I knew he could jump. And if he was going down, he was going to tear the house down with the dunk. I knew that. But I was just like, I told him, you're not getting the ball. And he had to start laughing himself. So.
What was it like just practicing against Len Bias every day for you?
Well, for me, probably more like practicing. Yeah, it was both practicing against and with him.
Yeah, against her.
What was interesting about Len, and Walt and Gerard can tell you this, when you're around a player for so long, you become less in awe of his abilities. He could be all this, all that, all types of accolades. But with Len, something would change. Like every other practice, you're like, hold on, I hadn't seen that move, or I hadn't seen you do that. So you still remain in awe, and that's a rarity to say about players when you're around them. You just like, wow. I mean, always play with a lot of passion, a lot of emotion. But again, one of the nicest people you ever want to meet off the court.
Do you guys remember this specific game at all? I know, Jeff, you mentioned that play from it and remembering it a little bit. Does everyone else on here remember? I know Thomas and I obviously didn't watch it live, but we weren't born yet. But for everyone else, like, you remember this game at all?
I do remember this game, actually. I don't remember the specifics of it all, but I do remember them two matching up in this game and the outcome of it. But also I remember the individual part of it, Len Bias versus Michael Jordan, and the points they both put up that game. So yeah, I do remember that game. The following year was the game that I saw him play in. So I would watch the Terps from time to time. I was a big fan of Adrian Branch as well. Gad Baxter, all you guys, man. I enjoyed the way y'all played the game, up tempo, throwing alley oops. I mean, y'all were an exciting team to watch. So I certainly tuned in to watch big games like this.
Adrian Branch is another guy. I'm kind of interested in this game partly to watch him as well, because he's someone. It's kind of easy to, his jersey's in the rafters and all that, but it's easy to get kind of lost in history. And he's a guy who I think with the 3-point line would have been an even bigger weapon. Both him and Lenny had that kind of range, and it would have, with the up-tempo style of play, it would have just added another dimension.
Yeah, Adrian was truly a pro, and Walt will attest to this. If you get on the right team, and you have the right confidence, it's no telling what the sky's the limit. And Adrian, if he had gotten on the right team, I will tell you, he would have had a really good pro career as well. Again, could handle at 6'8". Could shoot at 6'8", could get to the bucket at 6'8". And as you said, Thomas, because Lenny was such a towering figure, almost overnight, the correlation or the association of Adrian, even though he actually is in the rafters, you miss that. And it's just amazing that you do. But Adrian could flat out play. I'm thinking about Walt, when he said he would come to the games. I was like an 8th grader when Adrian was, I think he's probably 10th grader at DeMatha, if I remember correctly, or maybe 11th grade. And I remember going to see him in warm-ups. It was a show. It was literally a show to see how high he got up over the rim. I mean, Adrian could flat out play.
Yeah, what was so attractive about Adrian too, man, was the way he handled the ball. Big guard.
Mm-hmm.
Like myself, I had never played on a team before until I was in high school. So, just pick up games and handling the ball, and it's no real posting up really in pickup games when you're playing street ball as much. So, so you had to be able to handle that ball, and so seeing someone like him, he kind of reminded me of the way I played the game. And so, yeah, I definitely was attracted to the way Adrian Branch, how he played, had crazy swag with the double knee braces too. So it was awesome to see him play.
Walt, you and him both changed in my opinion, that you guys were the start of the outlook of, look, you don't have to be 6'2", 6'3", or whatever to be able to handle the ball. If you're 6'6", 7, 8, and you can handle the ball in that manner, again, you become a triple threat, and the sky's the limit. And I'll tell you, Walt, when you got to Maryland, I was just like, can this guy really play? So you didn't know this. I would be at your practices and I'm just watching. I'm like, oh no, he can get it. I mean, you did not know this, Garrett. You probably didn't pay attention, but I would be sitting in practice and I'd be over there. I'm like, this dude can actually play. I'm just watching you. I'm watching. And then, you know, when you started doing things that, I don't know if you realize this, one of your reverse dunks is the same dunk that Lenny did in the Carolina game when we beat Carolina had their first loss in the Dean Dome down there. One of your reverse dunks is the same dunk he did when he got the steal and he dunked over this big guy Warren at Carolina.
Yeah,
so it's interesting.
Yeah. I certainly remember that for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed is like Maryland at this time was wearing Nike, and a lot of college basketball, I mean, a lot of just basketball in general was just strictly, you know, in Converse at the time, not really, Nike wasn't as, you know, big yet. What was it like playing in those Nikes at the time?
I loved them. I wore low tops, which was crazy, based on my coach Lefty, and he would get so concerned. I wore low tops. So Nike created a 3/4 Nike, and they gave it to us. So I started wearing them as well. And we loved them. So Lenny, tell you a story. Lenny went to wear the same shoes, the 3/4, and he sprained his ankle in practice. So I got in trouble the whole practice. I got in trouble the whole practice, even though Lenny sprained his ankle because he said Lenny was wanting to wear the shoes because I had them on. It was crazy, but Nike was a force. As you well know, the history of Georgetown was it's the start of them, but Nike was seriously, they were a nice shoes as well as they are today.
Because I can't imagine just playing in Converse. Like, that still feels so crazy to me that was like the basketball shoe.
Yeah, I guess not, because they are canvas right now and everybody plays in leather. I think I played in Converse when I was little, but by the time I had gotten to high school, and probably like 8th and 9th grade, I was actually in Pro Kids, which is a whole different shoe in Adidas.
Yeah. I was in whatever I could get, man. Sometimes I would get some shoes from the grocery store out there, man.
Yeah.
They had shoes in grocery stores?
Yes, they did. They did. And we were talked about when we got those shoes in the grocery store as well.
$7.99 specials.
Yeah. Matter of fact, your grocery stores, your Safeways guys, your Giants, they sold shoes.
Yeah.
Had no grip though. Had no grip.
It would be like a whole row of like the same shoes, you know, like 50 pair out there, you know, a whole different, you know, section full of that. So it was like a buffet style.
Right.
Out there.
Right. It's cool for me just to see like a full game, because I feel like I've only seen, you know, been able to watch highlights and stuff, or like really grainy videos on YouTube.
Yeah. No, this is a good. I have this one as well. Actually, I think I watched it about 2 years ago, if my memory serves me correctly. I was in a doghouse on this one. Walt knows about that. I was in a doghouse on the Gerard too. No, I was in a doghouse on this one for a little while. So I remember this clearly.
What did you do to get in the doghouse?
You know what? I cannot remember if I got smart or something. Something happened. Also, this was a different time. My sophomore year was a tough year anyways, because Keith had come in, Gatlin, and Keith was just a hell of a passer. I'm talking about it just could see the court with that 6'5" frame. It was just amazing. And we had horses, literally nothing but horses, as you can see on that court, that if you threw the ball up to them and they went and got it. So Keith went to the point, and I was more of a combo guard anyways. And finally in my senior year, I went to the 2-guard spot. But there was a combination of that and Keith coming into the game, and probably I think I may have gotten smart with coach.
Yeah, man, Keith, man, how tall he was, a tall point guard out there too. Not quite Adrian Branch size, but
right.
what I liked about him is he had that high dribble too. And so
yeah.
Those little guards, and they still couldn't take it from him.
Nope.
I love that. I love that. He was so smooth with his handles. And for a person like you, Jeff, how was that after the game? You watching guys, and then the 3-point line comes into play. And man, do you think about what it would have been like for you had you been able to play under those circumstances?
Oh wow, it would have been amazing. That 3-point line, Walt, as you know, it's a moneymaker. If you're a specialist in that piece, or even just can hit it, if you could be a recipient, a John Paxson, a recipient of Mike's double teams, the Scotty's double teams, and you can just hit the J. Oh man, that I would have loved to take that paycheck, Walt, and run with it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Been a different game for
different game. Totally. I was talking to Keith, actually Gatlin, maybe about a month and a half ago. We just running our mouths, and he said, we were cracking up. He said, "Jeff, you came along too early, brother." I said, "We both did. We both did." He said, "Too early." He said, "They're making money hand and foot."
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let me ask you a question about Kenny Smith real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Kenny didn't shoot much here. I've been watching the games. He didn't
Nope.
take many, outside shots.
Nope.
When he got to the league, he became a 3-point shooter. Yep. How did you guys prepare for that? Did you guys look at Kenny as a threat, from the outside back then, or you just kind of developed that when you got older?
No, we looked at Kenny as more. He was their floor general. He knew how to get the ball to the right people at the right time. Kenny is really good. I will say this without a doubt. This is from a New York kid too, New York City kid. He's really good at following directions. And Kenny in high school, he shot it a lot, but Kenny gave the ball up. It's funny you say that, Gerard. A lot of people don't realize that he just ran that offense to perfection. And that's what he did. So we weren't planning for him. Again, we were really concerned about Sam and their wings and Mike as well. But Mike on defense, he was the concern. Everybody was like, look, if you're dribbling around him, do not turn your back, because when you turn your back, he's actually reaching with those long arms. So if you're dribbling the basketball, how sometimes some pros can turn their back, Magic, Walt, when they're dribbling it. He said, never forget, Lefty said, when you turn your back, he's going to take it. So be careful when you turn your back.
Yeah, he was known for that. But, I watched the game, and I don't see Kenny taking one jump shot yet, not spotting up.
Nope.
Just sort of just making sure everybody getting the right spots and, making the right passes. Yeah,
you're so right, Gerard, with that. But the interesting thing, he could shoot it. He could shoot it then.
Yeah.
As we well saw as a pro, but could shoot it then. But it's just it's a game changer. Obviously, all of us know that when you get to college basketball, especially when you have other horses or teammates, someplace you go, you're the man. Someplace you go, you're not the man.
Right.
I know. Early on for me, whenever I watch a tape or something of us back in the day, Gerard, my sons, like in my sophomore year, they always ask like, "Dude, you only had like 10 points, man. 12, you were barely shooting." I was like, "Man, I had to get a ball to Gerard, man.
Right.
Gerard and Tony.
Right, there you go.
Wait my turn. It wasn't my turn yet.
But when your turn came, boy, you lit it up. So
yes, he did. Impressive.
But see, that was the great thing about Walt, that he can play 1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Play the 4 if he had to, because he had the size. But when Coach Wade put him at the point, it was all over then. And I think that was because we were trying to figure out a strategy. How can we, beat NC State and some of those teams, and they had great guard play.
Right.
But he used Walt, and all of a sudden it's like, bam, we found something.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody, started really to see his game, how it expanded.
Mm-hmm.
And once Walt went to point, you really couldn't stop him. And so I'm looking at how you played, and you mentioned how when you were, first couple of years, you were the one, but you're really a combo guard. So we did the same thing, I think, with Tion McCoy.
Yeah.
Tion came in as a point, but he was probably better suited as the off guard spot. And
right.
So I think that pressure from him having to, to fight and bring up the ball, took away from his scoring. But as soon as Walt moved over to the point, the game became much easier. And, from a big guy perspective, Walt can really see us. He can pass over guys, and, We call him the wizard for a reason.
Yeah.
All the way get that ball to you. So, his skill set was, off the chart.
Absolutely.
And that sort of positional versatility that you're describing, it feels like it's become a lot more of a premium in the last few years, but it sounds like both Lefty and Gary kind of embraced it pretty early on.
Yeah, that was one of Gerard's biggest assets, just being
Yes.
able to on that perimeter when I could penetrate, he could step away from the basket. It was very fundamentally sound, shoot off the glass, had low post game, could shoot spot ups from anywhere on the court, threes and all of that, man. So he definitely was ahead of the game, and we were lucky enough to have a coach in Bob Wade and Gary Williams who embraced that. For me, it was confident building that in my freshman year, like Moose alluded to earlier. Bob Wade was confident in allowing me to handle the ball, and so then into my sophomore year, when Tion, you could see that Tion had a little uncomfort level out there with handling the ball. He couldn't really get his game off, and so I talked to Gary about me being the point and moving Tion to the 2, but that came from having that experience the year before in some games with Coach Wade and the confidence he showed in me. And so the only thing I used to do, man, I would get that ball, and just like Moose said, man, I was so tall out there, I could see over top of guys. So I would watch Tony and Gerard. They were most of the time they were more athletic and faster than the other bigs that they were playing against. So I would look at those guys running down the court, and I would look for them on the fast break. As soon as I got the ball, that was my first look for Tony or Gerard running down the lane. And so if they were not open, they would draw so much attention that my second look would be Tion, trailing for the 3. And so we benefited a lot from our bigs being able to run the floor, but also just having an understanding of, okay, these guys have the ability to create open looks for us. And so I started to be consistent with looking for those 2 things, and we would get open looks often because of that.
This play that we just had come up on the screen, just that lob completely across the court. It's a great vision. I feel like with a lot of those teams, when you have someone like Leonard and some of the other guys that had down low, I think one of you said it before, you can kind of just throw it in that area and they're going to get it up.
Yep.
Yeah, when you're playing with dudes that's dominant, like I was mentioning, our big guys, man, they could just get that ball and they could score. I don't care who was guarding them. You start to have confidence, and I just need to get the ball near them, and they gonna get that. They're gonna take care of the rest. And so I would imagine somebody like Len. I would be looking for him every time.
Yeah, and on that play in particular, it's one thing to throw the pass of that length and then to come down with it, but then he still had to come down and snake around 2 guys and finish in traffic.
Yeah,
one of those guys being Michael Jordan too wasn't easy.
Right.
Yeah,
one guy being Michael Jordan and the other guy being about 7 feet.
And in this day, you don't have freshmen leading the team. You're playing against junior and senior guys that probably were pro ready already in their sophomore year, but they were still in college, and so that made for the college environment, just the talent level was just at a whole nother level playing against these guys, not only just because of their skill set, but the mental approach, just experience in the game itself. So, it was just at a very, very high level when you talk about the college environment back in those days.
And the cohesiveness as a team too, because it's these cores sticking around for several years.
Yep.
Jeff, did Len ever think about going to the NBA earlier?
So his junior year, they were coming for him, and what happened was Lloyd's of London. Lefty got an insurance policy from Lloyd's of London for Lenny. I think it was $1 million. It may have been $2 million. Anyways, and hence the reason why he stayed. But yeah, his junior year, he thought about leaving. Yeah, he did.
I mean, it was a big deal for somebody to leave in their junior year back in those days.
Absolutely. That was a huge deal, Walt. I mean, because folks, they just didn't leave. I mean, it was an anomaly when you left. And as you said, the junior year was the earliest at that time.
And so that just made for just the college environment was just, I mean, the competition level was just very, very high because like I said earlier, it wasn't just the skill set, it was the experience that went along with that as well. So guys really knew how to play the game,
right?
Along with the talent level. So now when you go to the NBA, you just step right in and you know how to play the game. And
right.
So it's a seamless transition, in our early on in our careers.
Yep. Yeah.
Gerard, what made you, decide to leave early?
I think it was a few things. I mean, one of the main things is we were on probation our last 2 years. So when that happened, and because the timing was so suspect of it, from the time we appealed it, I think the university appealed the decision from the NCAA. We didn't get the ruling until like August of 1990. I'm from Carolina. Most of my family's from North Carolina, and so one of the reasons why I went to college in the ACC was that they all could see me attend my games and travel and watch us on TV. They couldn't. So we had a total blackout, so for our last 2 years, no NCAA appearances in the postseason, there weren't going to be any televised games. And so, from that perspective, I just thought that end of the day, I'm probably better off is, to look at the NBA. And, I compete against all those top players, me and Tony had competed against all the guys from J.R. Reed, Scott Williams. I mean, you had like 5 or 6 pros from the Tar Heels then. You had Tom Hammonds, you had Danny Ferry, and Christian Laettner. You had, throughout the ACC, you had tough battles. Eldon Campbell and Dale Davis. So, I held my own against those guys. And so if you can do that, you figure, why not? I know it was not many guys did that, particularly sophomores.
Yeah.
So, took a chance and I competed against them and, we decided to make that move.
And Gerard too, as well. Eldon and Dale Davis, those were grown men then. And you were holding on against, those were grown men. I'm talking about with bodies, Thomas. They had bodies already.
So yeah, that's what I was about to say as well. On top of those things Gerard was just talking about, he was strong enough. He had the size to deal with guys at the next level, deal with grown men, and he was a sophomore. So unlike myself, I was not ready to deal with that yet. I needed a ways to go in the weight room.
I think, man, what got me over at that point was the skill set, because I played as a big, and I look back and in hindsight, you say, wow, maybe I was a little bit, before my time, because big guys didn't have a chance to do the things that I was doing. So, funny story, when I got to the league, my rookie year, the coach told me I can't shoot jump shots past the free throw line. I'm like, what? You didn't see me play in college? That's what I did from high school to college. I actually shot, I was in and out. And he got to the league, the coach said, no, you can't shoot that. And so nowadays, all they want you to do is if you're a tall forward or a power forward, and just spread the floor, and shoot outside. Particularly when you had a player like Patrick Ewing in the middle,
Right.
So, I think I said, man, probably a little bit before my time when it came to that. You can do it in college, but when you got to the league, things a little bit different.
And it seems like a thing that a lot of people who are more like Thomas and I's age have realized just watching The Last Dance has just been, how much more physical the league was. What was that like for you guys, being a part of that and playing, where it's just so physical every single night?
I think that the first thing is the physicality is you playing against grown men, so, like today, guys that leave high school, guys 19, your top players in every draft are probably over half of the top players in the first round are probably 19 or 20 years old. All right, probably 19, half of them. We're back in our day. I spent my first 2 years being the youngest guy in the league, not just on my team, but in the league. So by the time my draft class came, we were still younger. Walter said he probably played against, maybe had 2 guys that was his age on his team. You got guys 34, 35. Those been, a lot of the older guys on your team. Nowadays, you probably play against half the players on the team are probably under 25 years old, so it's a big difference. And then once the rules change in terms of the hand checking and being able to be physical, you can't do those things now. Nowadays, you can score a lot of points, they want to push your tempo, spread the floor out. Before you came in the middle, you watch the Bad Boys. I'm sure you guys watched the Bad Boys and you watched the Lakers, you watched all these teams. You came through the middle and you got side check, hip check, you got knocked on your behind. Those things were allowable, back in the early 90s. Not no more, and so that's probably for me the biggest difference that I see when I'm watching the game, how much physical it is. And then the age difference. You got a lot of older players, veterans on every team as opposed to now. Again, you're looking at a team, and you may have 8 guys on a team under 24 years old, which to me is incredible.
Wow.
I mean, the game is always going to be a young man's game, but just like Gerard said, in our day, experience weighed a lot. Because it was so physical, especially on the perimeter. I don't think it has changed that much in terms of physicality around the basket. It's just that guys just don't be around the basket as much. But on the perimeter, you could be a lot more handsy and hand checking guys. So most often that would nullify a guy's quickness or his athleticism. And so it always reverted back to what is your skill set. And so, in those days, you had to be able to score with that, have that element of physicality being a part of it. And I remember in my rookie year, my first game playing with the teams, not only is the physicality on the ball, but off the ball as well. I remember throwing it to the wing and running down the lane about to come out into the corner, and I'm just running through the paint, not paying attention, and guys are just serving you, giving you forearm shivers and knock the wind out of me, because I wasn't prepared for that. Right. But the physicality was just unreal when you got to that level. And it was whether you had the ball in your hands or not. You always had to deal with guys just on you, just being physical with you all the time. And so now when you look at the game now, that element is gone. So now you see the games in the hundreds and guys being so much athleticism and quickness and guys just flying all over the place. And I believe it's gone to another level because of teams like the Bulls who were just so physical on the perimeter. You had those games where it would be 80-something to 70-something, because of the physicality, and it took away a lot of the athleticism and quickness on the perimeter. So that those games, those things are a lot more prevalent now because you can't be as handsy on the perimeter. So now you see those guys start to step to the forefront.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you remember Older Store?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Michael Cage,
yeah.
Charles Oakley, Rick Mahorn,
Big Mike Brown,
Xavier McDent. Think about it. Every team had enforcer. Every team had enforcer. And you did not get any free room to run across the lane, down the lane, through the lane. So you might have maybe 2 guys now in the league that we can say, could play with those guys.
Yep.
Every team some teams had 2 or 3 guys. So, for me, you knew every night you had to be careful because, it could be a fight if you weren't careful.
in that environment, it wasn't just basketball, man. They challenging your manhood out there, the physicality of it. You know, those guys are going. We might start this game off playing basketball, but if things are going well for you, I'm gonna put this fist in your face, or get in your face and put these hands on you and see if you can deal with it then.
Right.
And so you had that element was certainly there, and for a young player. Going against guys who were grown men and used to that environment, it was something that you had to get used to that degree of physicality that was brought to you.
Your first game was against Michael Jordan, right? You had told me that story, your first game in the league.
Yeah, preseason game out there in Sioux Falls. so it wasn't televised. So but I mean, I remember the gym just being packed with people just coming to see Jordan, man, wanting to see him. And so, that was my first experience to the league. And so I got to go against the best right out the gate.
Bias in this game has 14 points in the first half right now.
Yeah, jumpers too, man. I mean, he's under duress mostly every basket he's gotten as well.
Right. And I remember one portion about this game. I remember, you guys may be able to see if you look hard enough. he kept getting tired. So just watch his body language every once in a while. You're like, oh my God, he kept getting tired. I'm talking about tired. He's like, I'm tired. I said, you're all right. You're all right. Shut up. Because that's the way we talk. I said, shut up and keep shooting.
Right.
What was the toughest team you guys faced this season, Jeff?
Wow. It's a bunch here. It's tough. I mean, Carolina, we played UNLV that year. Shoot, Villanova, we ran it. It's a litany of teams. Duke, NC State. I mean, it's a list. And it's like every game was a battle. Every game was a battle. I think this year we also had played. No, we didn't. That was a year later. We had played Reggie Lewis at Northeastern, which was a problem, and ironically, we had become a Boston Celtic as well.
Yeah, we talk about the pros and how physical it was, but in this day right here in the college game, these college teams had very good perimeter players, but they all had that element of that serious physicality with their inside players. I mean, Well, you probably can speak to this more, but playing teams like Wake Forest with Sam Ivey, Chris, Rodney Rogers. Then you go to Carolina, you go with Scott Williams, Chill. Like all of these big 7-foot physical guys, man, and it was present on every team. Even if they had perimeter, even if they were perimeter oriented, they always had that element of guys inside that you were gonna have to battle, be physical with throughout the whole.
I mean, just watching this, I mean, everyone talks about, Len Bias's jump shot, but just, watching a full game and seeing it over and over, it really was just a pretty shot.
It's very, very, very pretty.
Picture perfect. I was talking to Thomas the other day, and Leela, and the thing about Lenny's jump shot, initially it was not a jump shot. It was literally a set. And then he just started rising one day in practice, and we were like, whoa, and kept rising. But he also worked on this. And it was just a picture perfect form from anywhere.
Yeah, what was his work ethic like from what you saw to day to day?
Phenomenal. I mean, literally phenomenal. And obviously there was God-given talent there as well. Like Walt and Gerard. I mean, they just had that God-given talent. But, without it, John Thompson said this one time. He said, all the talent in the world without any work ethic means nothing. And Lenny exhibited that. I mean, he stayed late. When he started dribbling more, what we would do is after practice, we would just do one-on-one full court. And what I was doing was just turning him on purpose so that he would learn how to turn. So he started doing, in the game, he started one dribble jump shot. Then he started 2 and 3 dribbles jump shot. Then he started a little bit of a not a Walt Williams crossover, but a resemblance of a Walt Williams crossover. And it was, and he just got better and better and better.
I was looking at, because you guys were talking about some of the other teams you played this year. I looked up the schedule, Carolina at the time of this game was number 1 in the country, but you guys played Boston College, who was number 6 in the country at the time in the preseason, early in the year. NC State was top 15 with Lorenzo Charles. Wake Forest and I think Clemson were both ranked during the year.
Yep. And you know, Thomas, you talk about those teams. Those teams had guards on them that were pros. I mean, Clemson had 2 players that were pros. Wake Forest had 2 players that were pros on their team. I mean, 3, as a matter of fact. I mean, it's just these dudes were players. They were well coached and clearly serious about their craft. I mean, it was. I remember Boston College. I think John Bagley was there and Michael Adams. But John may have left. I can't remember.
So
I mean,
this team is Jay Murphy and Michael Adams.
Jay Murphy. Okay, yeah. I mean, pros, just literally pros, and Boston College was one of the schools that was on my list of possibly choosing to go there as well. It's interesting, but it's just a litany of pros throughout the year that you have to face.
And not only that, man, you make a great point there. You know, these teams having 2, 3, sometimes 4 pros on a team at the same time, and they're not young. They're experienced players, experienced at the game in our pros. You know, we're not talking about, they're freshmen and they're going to be great down the road.
Right.
Right now, they were experienced players right now and ready to play at the next level. And it's 2 and 3 of them on the same team.
Yeah.
You know, the ACC was just, I mean, it was off the hook back in those days. No question. It was clearly the best conference in college basketball.
And another thing that I'm noting real quick is that you guys at one point played 5 straight road games during the season. You had 2 non-conference games in January and then played 3 straight. You played at Virginia, at Georgia Tech, at Wake Forest, all in a row.
That was it's funny, ironic you mentioned it. That was one of the toughest road trips ever. First of all, Adrian Branch was one of the silliest people that you ever want to play around. My freshman year, we went to Georgia Tech. This is the first statement he made. He said, he told Lenny and I, don't get all excited. Count this as a loss. Before we even got in the court, we're looking like, what? And the second year, he said the same thing, counts as a loss. He said, we can win everywhere, but for some reason, we cannot win in Georgia Tech. And those road games in the ACC were brutal. I mean, you went up and down and you played. I think we may have beat Virginia and then lost to Georgia. I can't even remember, but it's just it was a tough.
So I have the schedule up. You beat Virginia by 1, and then you lose to Georgia Tech by 1, and then you lose to Wake Forest by 3.
Jeff, I got a question. What's up with Georgia Tech? Is it Atlanta? Is it?
You know what? I'll tell you this. I thought it was not even Atlanta. I think it was that. We hated that spot where they played. You know, it was like
down low.
Yeah, it was down low. Yeah. It was kind of dark in there. It was a weird.
Yeah, not bowl.
That bowl, exactly. And we, for some reason, but I think Adrian was just being silly because he said he hadn't won there. He's like, look, count this as a loss. Don't get all excited. So Lenny and I were like, what? You know, because we're competitors. We don't know any better as freshmen. We're like, what are you talking about? He said, count this as a loss. Don't worry about this one. But it was just tough. Lenny went off in that game against Georgia in the second year, though. So it's crazy playing those league games, and then as you even out of conference, it's just tough.
Maryland actually just got a commitment for a class of 21.
We did.
Our 4-star power forward Julian Reese.
Yeah.
Angel Reese's brother. How about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they need some interior guys, you know.
They need him for 2020 though.
Yeah, right.
2020, yeah.
Right.
So they're losing a host of guys in that middle, man. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they fill that void. I mean, you know, you got a guard like Morcell and players who can be versatile and play tough, but at the end of the day, you need bodies down there that can have that physical element, and you need some height, man. So it's gonna be interesting to see what they can do. Morcell is somebody who can start to step away from the basket and be a little bit more consistent that way. And take advantage of the bigger guys when they have to guard him on the other end. Mm-hmm. It can be something. It can be something interesting if that element is there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Walt. We need a little bit of size. Also, because of the way the Big Ten, the way it's way they play in the Big Ten, where they're extremely physical. Yeah. So ACC, you did both. You physical, but you got up and down that court. Big Ten is just a little different. You need some size. You really do.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right about that. ACC is a little bit more up and down. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just how, this pandemic and everything going on affects everything with whenever they're able to, if they're even able to get, summer workouts in, or how that's all going to look. Because I think that'll play a really big part with the development of Chol Marial and, what he can be down low is just him getting more reps and practice and things like that. So coming off that injury.
Yeah, no, I agree. Also, the other piece of this pandemic, this will be a separation point, I think, for a lot of players. The ones who have that independent drive, Walt, and Gerard, you know about this, that independent drive where you're going to go hard without anybody watching. This is going to be a separation of a lot of players, believe it or not.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely. I mean, I remember in my day, it wasn't even so much drills and all the working out and stuff. It was just, we had, it's a court over here, let's get this game going. And we just played all the time.
Right.
And just playing against top-notch competition, but just playing all the time. I mean, I tell my sons all the time, I ride around in the neighborhood and you see these basketball courts out here and there's no one on the court. Listen, they got fiberglass backboards out here on the outside court. I'm like, oh my goodness. We would have died to have that type of scenario with nets on the court and everything, man. Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
We out here on the half a moon backboard. we got chains up here on this rim.
Right. You go up to dunk and you have to realize, no, don't do that because you're going to cut your whole wrist off. And you're like, oh no, there's nothing there. So it was a different mindset. Thomas, you guys got it good. I can just tell you that.
So one thing that you guys had though was there was a court on, like, outdoor court on South Campus, and Walt was telling the story about how he ended up being the 5th for Len Bias's team one day on that court.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was. My sister was up. She went to University of Maryland as well, so she was up at the school for some type of class or early registration or something of the sort. But back in those days, the admission building, it used to be lines out there that were unreal. Waiting for whatever they had to do, and so. My dad let me go on the south side of campus and play some hoops until she got ready, and I just happened to come out at the time where it was a new 5 coming on the court, and Bias's team needed one. So as soon as I walked onto the south side, I walked right onto the court and got the opportunity to play a pickup game with Bias, man, and it was just unreal to see the sense of urgency he played in, and just the casual pickup games and how he just dominated guys. And, he just had that same intensity as like if he was playing in a real game, and so it was just surreal to be in his presence and to see his approach to the game, even when it's pickup.
You guys throw each other any alley-oops?
Wow.
Nah, not at all. I was just in awe out there, man. I couldn't even get it together out there, really. So, when I touched the ball, all I did was just pass it.
Wow.
Jeff, how often did you play out there?
I'd play. I'm just what Walt just intimated a couple of minutes ago. Play anywhere. We would play anywhere, because here's the good thing about when you would go out on South Campus and play. There were dudes that were attending school just as a student, not as a student athlete. They were competitive and they could actually play. So you get out there and get a run, you're like, okay. And then there's also guys that were home from college by way of having got kicked out of college or whatever it may be, or home just on a break, and they would come and play because they knew we would be out there. So I'll tell you, I'd play. I remember one time over there, it's interesting. We were playing, and I cannot remember this kid's name, but anyway, Keith Gatlin, who never got into anyone, he and the kid got into it because the kid was literally trying to kill Keith, and Lenny and I were like, "What is going on?" So we had to kind of act like a team at that point and say, "Okay, we're gonna have to get this dude off of Keith." And so they wouldn't have any issues. But Keith was just mild mannered. He had never really gotten into anyone like that. So that's how competitive it was playing at those different spots. I remember one time Len and I actually riding through Georgetown, and we're riding through Georgetown. We were on the campus, and they were playing out, a couple players out on the court playing, David Wingate and Mike Jackson. So we went out and played with them. We literally went out there and played with them. So that was the life then.
Yeah. And not only that, in South Hill too, it would be, it's a lot of kids from this neighborhood, a lot of talent from this neighborhood, and sometimes get caught up in certain circumstances or what have you. And a lot of them didn't go to college, even though they had the talent to. And so those guys will be out there playing as well. You see neighborhood guys out there playing as well. So, it was just some very good talent out there on the campus, on the south side of campus.
And Gerard, you played at DeMatha, right?
Yep, sure did.
I feel like I've just been hearing so many stories lately with different, we had Dwayne Simpkins on a podcast the other day, and just there's such a rich history, both with, PG County and then, with DeMatha specifically as a program.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mile down the street pretty much. So, I spent a lot of time up there with Jeff and them. And with Lenny, I would always come over to their dorm and hang out a little bit, knock on, is Lenny in? Is he here? So I spent a lot of time, I was recruited by Lefty initially. Right. And, and then obviously I played for Bob and Gary. But I spent a lot of time up there on campus. And so I knew those guys pretty well. And, being I lived in Greenbelt and, I went to high school in Hyattsville, College Park is right in the middle. So straight down Route 1, stop, get off the bus, go hang out, get keys to the gym, hang with the players, play, and go right back home. So that was convenient for me. And, I see a lot of DeMatha guys are, Maryland probably could stand a little bit more, but DeMatha has been a pipeline for College Park for a long time, not just in basketball, but for football too. And so it makes sense that it really makes sense. Particularly Prince George's County guys as well. I know, Walt played over there at Crofton, and they were, a really strong team in his junior, senior year. Actually, probably a sophomore year too. Walt,
we went
they were pretty good. So, I think the recruiting ground is real fertile in the county if, if the coaches decided to, spend a lot more time here, finding talent. And being as though I'm a, DeMatha guy, a lot of players up there. Jeff went to a great school and rich tradition basketball too. So, I think when you get a lot of hometown players, you can kind of, you build up your fan base too. Fans really appreciate guys, local guys. And so I think that's always a good relationship to have. You got homegrown talent, they stay in, the state school. If you can, it makes sense.
Yeah, I've noticed that college basketball recruiting is a lot more national now than really ever. I mean, Maryland's gotten guys from really all over the country, even a few international guys, but it does always feel a little different when it's a local kid who commits and who signs and who plays and who becomes a star. And that's why it was such a big deal, I think, to get Morcell and Jalen Smith from the same school in Baltimore. I mean, they just, had gone a few years without that many Baltimore kids. And Anthony Cowan being a WCAC kid, being from Bowie, I think that just resonates with the fan base a lot more than, even some of the guys that are from like Virginia or Jersey or wherever. It just feels, for the fan base especially, a lot more, it resonates better if when it's a local kid.
So Thomas, do you know the WCAC wasn't always called the WCAC? Did you know that history?
I think someone told me that the other day, actually. What was it? What did it used to be called?
Metro. MAC, Metro Area Conference, right? Yep.
Yeah, so we was just public school, man. We just playing the neighborhood kids. And it was craziness. It was like It was crazy because it'd be like you playing against just a neighborhood, and every single team had a major D1 dude on their team, at least. Some of them had 2, 3 of them, just not necessarily major, but D1 players, and it was in public school, And so, I mean, it was just rich in talent. I mean, playing against schools like Northwestern that had Len's little brother, Jay. Just playing in that conference, it was just a host of talent and kids that left that conference and went on to be major D1 players and NBA players. And so it was just weird to be able to see you get to the highest level in the game and you're seeing guys who you played in high school against. So I mean, that was just amazing to see. I know for me, coming up with you didn't where guys were from in the NBA, they didn't publicize that as much. So I didn't even know playing in the NBA was a reality until really I saw Len Bias. Saw that, oh, okay, he's from the same place I'm from, and he's in the NBA. But even still then, you look at a guy like him and just think that it's an anomaly. It's just, one of a kind type of deal. So, but I would imagine the kids that came behind players like me and Gerard, you just started to see so many guys from this area playing in the NBA and started to be mainstream for people. And so I would imagine that the younger guys were inspired by so many players from this area making it to the highest level.
I mean, one thing I'm interested to see with this, name, image, and likeness stuff coming up is if that maybe gets more players to want to stay in the area because you're, building up this reputation in this DMV area, and maybe you have more opportunity, to make, a name for yourself and be able to profit off yourself in that way if you're, staying home in this area and, with the market of having both DC and Baltimore. I'm interested to see if that kind of gets some of these top talent from the WCAC and PG County to stay home a bit more.
Well, I think when you stay home, some guys shy away from that because when you stay home, you are now playing in front of people who've seen you your whole entire life. Expectations are higher. Scrutiny is a little bit more cutthroat, and so making a decision to stay home, you got to be prepared to, especially in this area, where just being in this area, the expectations are very high, period. And so you got to be ready to deal with that scrutiny and be able to take on that challenge. And I know for myself, I wanted all of that. I wanted that challenge. I wanted the expectations of the people seeing me in high school, and now you're expecting that same dominance at the next level. I think that really inspired me to work hard and to prove that I was that caliber of player.
And, just going back to, the game we have on right now, it really was such a back and forth game. And it seems like Len was really just having a good game.
That was pretty much every time.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much every time, but to have 14 points in just the first half. And it's interesting just to see, you hear so much talk about him and Jordan playing, but to just actually see it. I mean, what was it like for you guys to watch them go head to head? Like, who do you think got the best of those matchups?
Well,
I mean, Carolina won this game, but I think, but Len, he looks like the better player of the two.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that, Walt. What I was telling someone who asked me a question about this game. This is prior to us even coming on. I said, just want you understand that Len and Mike were not guarding each other. They weren't coming out matching up. That's not the way it worked. It may have been some switches where they got on each other, but they weren't coming out, okay, you have him, you have him. I said, that's not the way it worked. Actually, Hermanville started a game on Mike. But the crazy part about it, because you playing system, Carolina played at this time a system. Mm-hmm. And Mike wasn't going to take 20 shots. He just wasn't at this juncture, because that's the way the system. Now Hey, Maryland, if we needed Lenny or Adrian to take 20 shots, they took them. As long as you made them, it was okay with Lefty. That's for daggone sure.
Hey, Gary too.
And Gary too, absolutely. And Coach Wade as well.
Wade, Coach Wade too.
It didn't matter. If you got going, they are players, coaches.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina in this game is running a zone mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're so patient on offense. I'm watching their offense. Guys screening, moving, and they know what they're doing. Every play down, they possession down, they just figure out what they're gonna do and get to the right person. Just watching how they move the ball.
And Gerard, they were like
in their game too.
You're right. They're like methodical. It's literally like a machine. It's almost like they're drugged. I mean, even watch how they run off the court. It's crazy. And they were always like that, and it was just amazing when you're on the court with them, you're playing against them, and every once in a while they'll go man to man. But what they were really doing was it was a fake out. They would first pass and they would trap you, and you probably saw this already earlier. There were a couple of turnovers, but they were just a really, really good team and well coached. And Lefty did, in my opinion, a great job of preparing us for each of these games. I mean, it's just sometimes at the end of the game, the better team wins, or that steal or that turnover, it just makes a difference.
And I mean, that was the greatness of Dean Smith, man. I don't know if you guys felt this, but when I would play in the game, especially towards the end of the game, he was unique in the fact that man, it just seemed like he could just manipulate that clock so much. I mean, he can make that thing, he can make 2 minutes go by like that, and then he can make 2 minutes last 35 minutes. It was just unreal to play in that type of environment where someone could control the game like that from the sidelines, and so, there's little things like that. You guys mentioned it, just the execution that they had. I mean, it was just, Dean Smith was he was one of the best for sure.
What were the key points that Lefty talked to you guys about when you were going into games against North Carolina?
So for us, the biggest key was, believe it or not, was you got to get back. They were one of the quickest teams in the entire country, and the way they got the ball out. I mean, if you watch, it was 2 dribbles, and whoever's up front, they're giving it to you. I don't care if you're a big man, they were giving it to you. So our biggest key was you got to get back. You got to get back on defense. And then the other piece was turning the ball over. You have to be aware, even to this day, it's interesting when I see a team. Actually, we were at this past year, it was Maryland. I want to say Maryland and Michigan. Anyways, they on the first pass, Michigan State, Maryland, the first pass Maryland made, and Michigan State was on defense. Michigan State started doing the trap, and the first thing I thought about was Carolina. To this day, the first thing I thought, because Carolina ran that system on their defense. So the two big issues with us when we were playing was getting back on defense and that first pass trap that they would do, and it was just, they were relentless at that.
What you're describing kind of sounds like when teams play Virginia right now and their defense, their pack line defense, which is a lot of trapping, is a lot of, it's sort of this hybrid man zone type of thing, and it possessions just take forever. You have to be so patient. Except their offense is patient too. And this Carolina offense, if you didn't get back, as you say, they had Michael Jordan and they could just zip past you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and they had Michael Jordan, and they also had, believe it or not, Kenny Smith,
and Brad Doherty and Sam Perkins.
Right, yeah, but Kenny was one of the fastest guards I've ever played against with the basketball. I'm talking about and they just got down the daggone court. I mean, it was amazing. But you're right, UVA plays similar. Only thing that UVA doesn't do, in my opinion, they don't take advantage of their steals. I don't know if you ever noticed, when UVA gets a steal, they're still looking to set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Walt knows this. I'm like, no, run,
go
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like UVA, but with that element of they can just go if they have to.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, this game has really highlighted to me. I mean, Adrian Branch for Maryland, and also Brad Daugherty.
So if you see Michael Jordan's mom and dad is behind the bench you'll see in a couple of seconds, you'll see Michael Jordan's mom and dad is right behind the bench of Carolina when it comes back on. But I'm sorry, what were you saying, Thomas?
Yeah, so I mean, this game kind of allows a lot of people who, don't even remember guys like Brad Daugherty and Adrian Branch, who, I think Daugherty, I mean, he was the number 1 pick and he was a NBA All-Star, but I think he gets kind of lost in the shuffle as, The Last Dance, it covers all these late 80s, mid 90s teams. And I think Daugherty he was one of those guys that never quite broke through because Jordan became the player he became.
Yeah, he was at Cleveland. He was a part of that team that just got it, they had to go through Chicago. And, it's just a problem. People talk about, this is just my opinion. People kill me when they talk about comparing greatness of some of the players that played in the league, and they correlate it with whether the player got a championship or not. And for me, I don't do that, because you got to go through a lot to get to that final and to get those championships. So Brad was one of those guys who just you have to deal with Chicago.
and Detroit at that time, and the Knicks.
I agree with you, Bax, man. I don't think a championship to me is a team thing. When you talk about individually how dominant a player is, or something like to that effect, I think championships are important, but that's not the be all end all. I believe that that's more of a team type of thing, and coaching all encompassing in order to be on the same page to win the championship. That doesn't necessarily speak to an individual's dominance out there. So, watching Brad Daugherty, his skill set was just off the chart, man. He wasn't the most athletic guy, but man, his moves around the basket, he had a very soft touch. I mean, he was a heck of a pro as well.
Yeah, and Brad's leaving the pros was because of he had bad back problems, if I remember correctly. And believe it or not, you're speaking of Brad wasn't even really into basketball like this. He was a racing car fanatic. Even when we were in college, we were like, Brad, what are you doing? I'm going to see the cars. We're like, what? Okay.
Yeah, I see him on the race car shows. Yeah, now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're right. You're correct. I mean, that was his thing, man.
What's up, Bino?
In my car.
Okay. Coach B.
What's up? What's up, guys?
You.
Yeah, what's up, Bino?
I know you can't comment on it, but I'll just say congrats.
He said what?
What's up, guys? Hey, just so y'all know, I love this team right here. I love this.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So did
Jeff
I, B.
Baxter, number 12, Jeff Baxter.
My man.
You watch these teams growing up,
Yes. Oh, I'm one of those local kids who grew up loving his state team.
Okay.
I love Maryland football and Maryland basketball. Like, I got pictures with like Brian Williams, Rudy Archer when they played down at the arena in this tournament. It was Loyola, St. Joe's, Ole Miss, and Maryland.
Yeah.
That's when Coach Wade was the coach. And got these with the late Brian Williams and Rudy and Cedric Lewis and all those dudes. Awesome. Love Maryland.
Hey Moose, were you a Maryland fan growing up?
No, man. Carolina was my team, man.
Okay.
Yeah, Carolina. Yeah.
It's like Maryland, I mean, I used to run around to people, different houses, just to try to watch ESPN. So me and Juan Dixon, brother Phil, we love the Terps. Brand.
that.
Sam Perkins was tough, man. Unsung
How
hero.
good was Branch?
Sam could shoot that thing too, man.
Unsung, man. I'm telling you.
Yes.
Quiet,
Sam was a problem, man. A problem.
Yeah.
Bino, you asked how good was Branch.
Hey, Jeff,
I'm talking
how
about
good was Adrian Branch?
really good. I was just talking earlier, Bino. I said, you know how sometimes players go to certain teams. I mean, just look at that move there. Sometimes players go to certain teams and they're able to flourish.
Yeah.
If Adrian had gone to the right team, let me tell you, I mean, it could just do it. It could do it all. I mean, and he was. I told Walt kind of patting his game behind him. I said, Walt, this cat was even at DeMatha and Gerard, you know this of the system y'all ran. Yeah. Morgan tried to put him down low. He refused. He was like, no, I'm going to learn how to dribble this basketball.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He wasn't having it. Which caused a lot of conflict at DeMatha, as a matter of fact. But AB was something special.
Yes.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. I mean, the ACC was special back then too, wasn't it, Jeff?
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm one of those guys. I'm a change agent. I can actually change with the times. I still, you know, to this day, I love what Big Ten brings to College Park and Maryland. But I will tell you that ACC, it's nothing like going up and down that road. I will never forget when it's just nothing like it. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yep. Great times.
Yeah, great times. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
What was it like for you guys playing in Cole Fieldhouse?
It was a little dark in there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you would look up in the stands and they would oversell the arena, so people had to stand up on the walkway up there. You'll see them standing around in Carolina games and stuff like that.
Yeah,
hot and sweating and stuff like crazy. I mean, it was. I mean, you could feel the crowd. It was one of the best arenas that I've ever played in. I really think it gave us a home advantage.
Yeah.
You know, just the feel of it all. It was a great environment to play in.
Yeah, Walt, you talk about. I mean, the fact that it was hot, it brought more energy to it. I mean, literally, you're sweating in there. The floor sweats, everything. But I'll tell you, one of the best pieces for me, you know, even when I became a starter, was coming out of that tunnel. I mean, it's just, you remember, Walt, it's just a different draw. It's just a different piece coming out of that tunnel.
And I know they don't do it no more, but what was the thing when victory was sealed? What, amen or something?
Oh, yeah. That amen chant. Y'all taking it to another level, Bino. Y'all updated it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that amen chant was something. I mean, when it was already sealed, it was some, you heard it and you got to going too.
Amen.
Yep, that's it. You thought you were in church for a minute. Absolutely.
And I like this old M logo. I don't think I've seen that one before.
Amen.
No. They switched that around.
That's old. The left-hander.
Yeah.
I love Gatlin.
Was a great, believe it or not.
Hey, Jeff, this is not the game. Did y'all win this game?
No, this one we didn't win. My junior year we got to win, and then my senior year we got to win down there in the Dean Dome. But we didn't win this one at all. But it went back and forth though.
Yeah. That's for Bias. When did you slobber on Bias? Remember, it's that footage y'all had beat. Was that the ACC tournament? It was two of them. I think it may have been when we the first win down at the Dean Dome, and then we beat them in the ACC tournament. I can't remember which one that was. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was just like I was saying earlier. It was just so exciting to watch you guys, man. I
remember you hugging them and jubilation, and that was awesome. And Mike was the real deal too, huh?
Yeah, Mike was the real deal, Bino, but he was more the real deal, as I was telling earlier, on defense. That defense, I mean, because he was literally like a cat. You turned your back.
Is this the game he rocked the cradle? with the dunk?
This is, and every one of us got cussed out in the locker room.
But hey, so I talked to Kenny Smith, right?
Yeah.
And what made Dean Smith great. You know, obviously, you know, they had that thing where so I passed to you, that you always pointed back to me, let me know that's a good pass. They had to do that. Yep. And then another thing is Kenny Smith, I think, said he was ahead on that break. Yeah. Like he was a couple steps ahead of Michael Jordan, I think.
Yep, you're right.
And
you're
Mike didn't give it up. Yep. And he said when they got back to Chapel Hill, Mike had to run.
Oh, he wasn't.
He said he got in trouble for not giving the ball up.
Walt and Gerard, we were just talking about how they were almost like computers out there. Everything was the system, and you had to go through that system there. And it's funny you said that, because Kenny had told me that they got in trouble when they got back, but he didn't tell me why. He had told me because at that time there was no cell phones, fellas. And Leela and Thomas, there were no cell phones. I had to get a call at my apartment.
Get the beeper go off.
Oh yeah. No, he wouldn't let us wear beepers, but there was no. The call had to come to the apartment, and if they couldn't get you, so if a player from another team called you, they would sometimes call the basketball office. Now Lefty thought, why are they calling the basketball office? I know you're not giving them out plays. That's how crazy he was at times. So just FYI.
Hey Jeff, but back then weren't your numbers listed?
No.
They weren't.
Them. He pulled them. They were. That's interesting you say that. He pulled all the numbers for the basketball players. Lefty has some power, man. He pulled all the numbers from the basketball players from our apartments. That's interesting you say that. He pulled them all.
Yeah, our numbers were listed.
Wow.
Yeah, because I remember calling. I'm telling you, I was a Maryland fan. I'm telling you, I would call 411. I'm telling you, I was a Maryland fan. I knew that.
Yep. Yeah. Lefty pulled them joints. I remember that when he pulled them. Something happened. Well, something happened prior to that too, with one of the jokers getting caught up with almost a rape beef. We won't go into that. And supposedly when it came out in court with one of the teammates is that the girl, we didn't know it then, but it was called it's now termed as a booty call, but the girl had called the guy at about 2:30 in the morning and asked to come over. And there was an issue that came about, but it never went through. But that's the reason why Lefty pulled all the numbers. But you're right. There was one point there was a numbers access. Everybody could just call anyone because they were listed.
Well, you said they had numbers when you were there. You ever get any strange phone calls?
All the time. They have it all the time.
All the time. All the time.
All right. We need. What's the favorite one that you can tell?
None of them.
Nope.
None of them.
We'll tell those stories.
I don't.
Hey, listen, I got one. I got one from.
So some of the players, they played in this game. They were here now. They're just talking about it's commemorating that game that's being played right now. And Len Bias and Maryland and Michael Jordan.
Is that BJ?
That's Bradshaw.
Bradshaw, okay.
Yep. So, no, it's all good. But, hey, guys, I got to get ready to jump. I just want to jump on here with you guys, man. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and I thank you guys for you guys continue.
Good talking to you, Coach.
My man, good talking to you, B.
Hey, Bruce, I still owe you. We still got to do lunch.
Yes, sir. I'm waiting for you.
All right. And same with Jeff and all you guys. I love
absolutely.
All right,
my man. All right, B. Talk to you soon.
All right. Hey, Jeff, real quick. I saw that red cup, too.
That was a good one. That was a good one, B.
You been on the red cup, too, Bruce?
Yeah, I was on there. Yeah.
And Walt, I know Walt been on there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, man.
Okay. Yes, all right. Yeah, Kurt, he trying to get me on there from 95 North.
He told me.
Yeah, get on there.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, but I gotta jump, guys. I get with y'all.
All right, bro. Be safe.
All right, later.
So you were about to tell us about one of the phone calls?
Yeah. No, I was just saying that I got one from Bobby Knight. That was probably
Really?
the strangest phone call I ever received. So yeah, in the dorm, I'm like trying to figure out how that happened. So yeah.
What did Bobby Knight have to say to you?
Don't want to come to Indiana.
Clearly.
Yeah. That's it. So yeah.
In my senior year, when the season was over with, it was just it was a bother to me because you know, agents and stuff like that could get my number, and it was just so many calls happening. You know, my phone was just ringing off the hook during those times, and for me, I just wanted to play basketball. So that part of the game was a distraction for me, or something that I didn't enjoy at all. You know, but of course, it is a part of the game, so you got to deal with that part of get your business straight. But for me, it was just a bother, man, to just have just random guys or random people just calling me, you know, talking about the next level in business and stuff like that. So I didn't enjoy it much at all. It was amazing how little our shorts were, man, back then.
Yeah. Someone used to tell me y'all jump higher. You guys used to jump higher because the shorts were so tight.
They're bringing it back though. The shorts are getting smaller now.
They are bringing it back, and it's like they're embracing it too.
Hey, Wig, you know what this is?
Oh, man.
I can still wear it.
What?
Yes.
Man, that is awesome right there. You can still.
Where's yours at?
Nah, you know what? I had one of my freshman.
His son probably has it somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. My freshman year jersey, you know, I was about like 165 pounds, man. So my sons, by the time they got to their freshman year in high school, they can't even wear that jersey anymore.
Wow.
I mean, my jersey was small, man.
Yeah. This is a shooting shirt though, so you know.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So how much weight did you add like during college before you got to the league, Walt?
By my senior year, I was about 200, you know, maybe 205 tops. But yeah, man, I was very, very thin as a freshman, and you know, just the physicality of the game. I knew that I had to get stronger. I mean, you know, guys were just tossing me around out there. But just my competitive spirit allowed me to survive. But I knew I couldn't be very successful out there if I didn't get stronger. I mean, you know, playing against guys like you know, Madden and Bucknell and you know, those guys. It was very physical on the perimeter. So you know, if guys knew that you were not strong, they would certainly take advantage of that.
A swarming North Carolina defense.
Yeah.
I mean, that was about 8 guys right around the basket. You just don't see that ever right now. Like these days, you don't see 8 guys near the basket.
No, they're already leaked out.
You know, Dean adapt too, man, because when the Carolina teams we played against, they rarely played zone. I mean, they were very aggressive man-to-man, denied a lot. And oftentimes, in order to get open, you had to cut back door to get the ball. So he kind of adapted with the times and according to the type of teams that he had and who he was playing against. So it was rare that they played zone when we played against them. They were very aggressive in their man-to-man defense.
What do you think made a difference down the stretch in this game after it being so back and forth? To kind of let North Carolina jump out.
Talent.
We had a lot of NBA players on that team, just a lot of.
Yes, it is.
It's a lot of NBA players on that court, but there's also, keep in mind, and again, going back to the folks, Walt kind of referenced this earlier, the folks that no one really knows about or never seen them on TV, will say that did not make it to the league. This is the same scenario. There's a lot of players on that court on Maryland and Carolina side that were good enough to be pros. That's for daggone sure.
This Carolina team went 28-3, 14-0 in the ACC.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Did get upset in, I think, the Sweet 16, but I mean, you see it just with the talent up and down with Michael Jordan, Kenny Smith, Brad Daugherty, Sam Perkins, Matt Doherty's in the middle of this, and it's just a lot.
Yeah, you got Joe Wolf coming off the bench. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, Sam Perkins out there.
Yeah.
Hey, was Jeff Lebo, was he a freshman on this team, man?
Yep, Jeff Lebo was a freshman on that team as well. I mean, and he was one of the most heralded players that ever come to go to Carolina. Remember that, Walt?
That dude could play, man.
They loved him, man. I mean, could flat out play. I mean, they just had players.
Yeah. Shoot that thing, man.
Yep.
So, I thought that Madden, is he on this team?
Which one?
Madden.
Madden?
Yeah. I thought that dude was a pro, man.
He came in next year, I think, Walt, right?
He came in next year.
Okay. Yeah, he's not on this roster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him and Lebo came together. They came in 85. Yeah, they came in 85.
Lebo's on this team, I think.
No, he didn't come to the next year. He came in school with Danny Furry. I played against him in high school.
Yeah. Because I was you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I'll tell you a story about Lebo. It's going to have you guys laughing. So Lebo, we're playing Carolina at Maryland. So Lebo comes on the court. I'm a junior, I think, and he's talking trash. Like, look, no, what he said was, "You can't guard me." And he was on offense. He was on defense. So I'm like, why did he say that? He's on defense. You know, you're trying to put it together. I proceeded to score 6 straight buckets. They pulled him out of the game. He didn't play again. It was hilarious. I'll never forget that at Cofield House. It was hilarious.
He wasn't known for defense, man.
No, but
not at all.
But on that other end, we went to the zone. He shot. Walt just mentioned he shot that thing, and I was like, "That's a beautiful jump shot."
He could shoot.
Yeah,
he could shoot that thing.
Yeah.
But Jeff, man, it must have been hard for you to, I mean, you had so many great players, you know, that you played with. So you had to be so efficient out there with your game, man. And a lot of those guys were, you know, especially you guys were so up-tempo and throwing alley-oops, and guys were great around the basket. You were the dude that stretched the defense out and opened it up for guys. But you wasn't a first, second option out there, man. So you know, you just had to figure it out and get busy out there with no 3-point line. I mean, it was just so many factors against you, man. How did you have so much success out there?
Walt, that's funny you mentioned that. I was telling a kid about 2 or 3 years ago. I said, look, the way you're gonna get on the court, if you do nothing else, you gotta play defense, and then you can get into whatever your offensive game is. And what I did was, Walt, I figured out it was my middle of my late in the sophomore year. I said, I got to get back on this court, because freshman year I played like crazy, but I had gotten in the doghouse during the sophomore year. But long story short, I said, I gotta figure out how to get on this court. So what I did was I literally worked on defense all day long. And I also had to come to grips with, again, as you mentioned, with so many quote unquote guns on the team, I had to come to grips with, you're not the first option. You're not the second option. You got to take what you get. And it's funny, we would go into film sessions after the game, and Lefty used to yell at them once I started getting in the court. They said, when he gets a steal, Jeff gets a steal, you all got to run back. So finally, one day, Lenny said, Coach, for what? He's not giving that ball back up. and it was true. I mean, I was ahead of the game, and I'm trying to get a bucket. So
Yeah.
You had to figure it out, Walton. I always tell dudes, I said, look, you may not get on that court for whatever you do best offensively, but the way you'll always get seen is if you play some defense. You play some defense, they got to get you on the court, and then you're able to, matriculate and work out all your other skill sets into the game.
Yeah.
How competitive did that make practices, just having so much talent on the team?
Practices were brutal. Any way you look at it, practices were brutal because everyone could play. I mean, all the way up to the 13th player could play. We had, my sophomore year, we had players on the team. There's a guy on there, his name is Pete Hobart. He was first team All-American, parade. I mean, and couldn't get on the court. I mean, so our practices were brutal. We had a kid from New York on there. His name is Steve Rivers. Again, excuse me, these guys could flat out play and they couldn't get on the court. So our practices were brutal. And the practice was the time to kind of show to the coaches that you could play. And you were trying to get the coach to transfer that mental thought of seeing your practice over into getting you on the court in real time.
Now that's funny that you say that, Jeff. Like for me, playing with so much talent, especially early on, where you're just trying to fit in. Gerard wasn't like that. Gerard came right in, and he was a dominant player right from the beginning. Right. He was a focal point right from the beginning. I wasn't like that. I had to kind of figure it out and just kind of wait my turn and just kind of feed off of what those guys were doing. So I would know how to. When I was in that position, I would know how to conduct myself. In high school, and that's what I was talking about earlier. We were a dominant team. We were up tempo with just a lot of people that could hurt you. It wasn't necessarily like I would just get the ball and just dominate the game. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really play like that until I was in college, and so I had to learn how to play that way. Just being so used to just fitting into a team concept. Yeah, it was a learning process for me to step outside of that and learning to be a dominant player.
Guys, Kenny Smith looks the same.
Yeah, except he has no hair now. Yeah. Listen, guys, it's been grilled. My family's calling me for dinner, so I got to go ahead and get to the table and stuff.
I got the same scenario here. I'm getting called
talking to everybody,
Mother's Day.
Stay in touch. All right.
Hey, listen, Jeff looks exactly the same.
There you go. Yeah,
dude. A bit out here, man. I'm breaking my beard.
I see Walt regularly. My man. My man, that's hilarious. Regularly. I remember, I'm just thinking about something we were playing the alumni game, Thomas.
Yeah.
And they put the young guys thought they were going to get us, so they put Walt and I on the same team. We tore them up. We tore them up.
Which young guys?
I mean, we tore them up. We as soon as we got the call, we said, yeah. They were looking at us like, oh, we can't believe we lost to y'all.
When was this? What year was this?
Shoot.
I might have been the last one. I think it was the last one they played.
It was the last one? How long has Coach T been there?
Maybe about 6 years, maybe.
Yeah, so it was about 6 years ago, something like that. Yeah,
I think it was the last one they played, man.
Last one we played. Yeah, it was about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dominated them boys.
Yeah, I mean, we dominated. We had a ball. Walt and I had a ball. We got off the court. We really did.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm about to roll up out of here too.
Yes, indeed. Good talking to y'all. Walt, I'll see you soon. Leland Thomas, great talking to you guys and meeting you all. And anything you need, please reach out.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
No bias, man. See this guy again. The book we wrote was just this right here inspired us right here. Let me give a shameless plug real quick. Lessonsfromlenny.com. Lessonsfromlenny.com. We got autographed copy books available, or you can get the book anywhere books are sold. So but this dude was a serious inspiration, and we wanted to talk about that, the impact he had on us. So, I mean, it was tremendous. So we wanted to talk about his greatness.
And just to add to the positive plug, I was talking to Tony earlier today, Massenberg earlier today about that. So I'm with you, Walt, 110%.
All right, bro.
All right, you guys,
thank
take
you guys
care.
for joining. Everyone should go check out that book.
Yes,
Absolutely.
please do. All right, now I'll see you guys
Take
later.
care. All right, bye-bye.
Sounds good.
And then there were two. I mean, we've got 55 seconds left. I mean, Carolina's pulling away right now, but
yeah, they are.
Maryland just can't buy one down the stretch here.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's, sometimes that's all it really takes in, you play 40 minutes and it comes down to who can make a bucket in the last couple minutes. And I mean, this was a game that was so back and forth. I remember the final box was a little bit more lopsided because, UNC just pulled away with free throws late, but that's the kind of thing that, that's what this game was.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the box score and I wasn't sure if it'd be a back and forth game or anything like that, but it's nice that it was back and forth till the end.
Yeah, very watchable game.
Minutes.
Very watchable game. I mean, that's why it's the game ESPN picked, I think. I mean, they don't tend to put reruns that they knew weren't going to be good games.
Right.
So,
I'm a big fan of the jerseys. I'm a big fan of this old Maryland logo, but I haven't seen as much.
Did you see the Maryland basketball actually tweeted out, like, should we bring these back? And of course, yes. Like they brought them back for the Georgetown.
Didn't they do those back for Georgetown? Yeah.
Yeah, they brought them back for the Georgetown game.
And those are beautiful.
People still wear them. People still because they gave away T-shirts for it. And that was my freshman year. The kids who were there still wear that shirt. Bring that back. And while we're at it, bring back the make those homecoming uniforms that Maryland football had. Make those the uniforms. It's simple.
Well, we were talking all year. I was talking all year with people from the athletic department, and we were all talking about, like, if, once Maryland makes the NCAA tournament, if they make it to a certain point, like, let's bring back the 2002 jerseys, and then they're going to see what they could do with Under Armour, but I guess we'll never know if that would have happened.
Yeah. And
I'm a big fan of throwback jersey.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, throwbacks are, I don't know, there's just something weird about them in sports. Even the uniforms that kind of looked awful at the time, years later look just better. I know the Houston Astros have a lot of this. They did some stuff that was kind of weird and very 80s at the time, but now it's like a classic.
Mm-hmm. So I have to say, watching this game, like, I know they all talked about how North Carolina had more of this system and things like that, but just watching this game, I mean, and this is not coming from just having any bias or things like that. No pun intended, but I mean, Len Bias seemed more impressive to me in this game. I just really, what everyone has always said about his jump shot, you really can see it. And just some of the shots he was able to make in this game really were incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I
feel like Michael Jordan didn't stand out as much to me in this game as Len Bias's play did, in all honesty.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of that comes back to UNC was a system, and they had much more balanced scoring. They just had a deeper team as well, and so it wasn't a system where Jordan would need to take 20 shots a game. And Jeff and Walt both echoed that. And so at Maryland, it was Len Bias or Adrian Branch or whoever's hot that night is just much more able to take over. And that's sort of what we saw in this game. And that's why Len's numbers are what they are. But obviously he had the game to go around because, he was getting trapped. He was getting doubled. And even when he was one-on-one, he was going up against, these guys who would be pros for years and years and were already.
I mean, and he's a sophomore this year, you know?
Yeah. And this isn't even, I mean, this is far from his peak form. You know, I don't think he was even all ACC yet. This was one of those games that was sort of a launching pad for him. And there were a few games throughout that sophomore year that were, you know, kind of vaulted him up. And it's sort of that ACC tournament, which Maryland won, that was sort of a big highlight for it. And then obviously he was ACC Player of the Year as a junior, ACC Player of the Year as a senior, then the number 2 pick in the draft. So to close out, it's kind of just incredible timing. We did our 64 player bracket for who's the best Maryland player of all time. Len Bias ends up winning it. I'm working on this this full-time this longer feature on Len Bias, and it's actually taken a little bit longer than I originally thought it would. I thought it would be out, you know, maybe even the week that we did the finals, but it's a week and a half later, and we're still putting the final touches on it. And so, just for while I'm still putting that together, to have a full Len Bias game against Jordan sort of broadcast nationally, I think, you know, we're just in the stage of quarantine where there is an appetite for this stuff, and there is time to talk about what Len Bias was. And, you know, so much of the talk about Len, at least casually, is what he could have been as a pro.
Especially if this was him going against Jordan as a sophomore.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the take that I said earlier in this show, is that, you know, we can't guarantee anything. It's just that with the position that Len was in, he would have been part of a championship contender as soon as he entered the league. And there's this group of teams in the East that were all fighting with each other. The Pistons end up being the top dog for a couple of years before the Bulls become what they became. And, you know, there were the Knicks, there were the Cavs, and the Celtics would have been right in there with championship pedigree. And it's hard to say how much having Len Bias would have extended the careers of Larry Bird, of Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, but it would have helped. It would have kept, you know, I mean, and Reggie Lewis too, would have been just a whole different type of thing.
I think we have Derek Lewis joining now.
We do. Looks like it.
He's connecting to audio. Hey, how are you?
Audio doesn't seem connected yet.
You're on mute. Hey, how are you?
Hey guys.
We actually just had everyone had to pop off to go do Mother's Day dinner, so we were just wrapping up here.
yeah. I guess I'm catching the last 30 seconds. I had to do the Mother's Day stuff before.
Yeah, I'm doing mine after we hop off this.
Yeah, I just stopped by to say hello, and thanks for the invitation. Anyway, just bad day, bad timing.
Yeah. So I mean, while we have you here, and there are still a few people watching this live stream for whatever reason, bless those people. So we you and I have talked about, because you played with Len Bias for 2 years. You weren't on this 84 team, but you were
right
on the 2 teams after that. and then when you get drafted, you were drafted by the Bulls, and you were in camp with the Chicago Bulls. And this is 88 Michael Jordan. This is like physical apex Michael Jordan. So what are the two, you know, those two guys, what did they have in common that made them just different from everyone else that was on the court with them?
I think that what they had in common is the competitiveness. Neither one wanted to lose in practice, and I got a chance to practice against both of them, Michael Jordan and Len Bias, and again, the practices to them were like games. And, you run up and down the court, practicing, trying to learn. I'm in Chicago trying to learn plays and learn systems. And he's competing like it's is, NBA championship. Same for Lenny. That's what made him the standout that he was in college, because he competed in practice. So when the double and triple teams came during the regular games, he was ready. He was already, seasoned, if you want to say that. Again, they came in every day to work and didn't take days off. And I mean, that's what made both of them so great, at their own individual times.
Do you have a favorite Len Bias story?
I think I may have talked about this before. My freshman year on campus, I'm walking across campus as a freshman, going to practice, and Len Bias is driving. Adrian Branch is in the car, Jeff Baxter, the older guys. And, it was a pretty good walk from Leonardtown to Cole Fieldhouse. I needed a ride. I was going to get a ride. They opened the window, told me, he said, come on, 3-3. Lenny called me 3-3. He said, come on, 3-3, jump in, we'll give you a ride. I walk over to the car, happy freshman. As soon as I get to the car, they pull off and they drive up the hill. And so that's probably my first and best story to tell. I mean, there was so many other times. We were roommates in Alaska, my first road trip. The trip to Hawaii we took, and those guys were just great. But it was one big family, and again, until we got on the court and started practicing, then all bets were off. It was competition.
I didn't remember, you had told me that story, but I didn't remember Jeff Baxter was the third guy in the car. I would have asked him about it.
Jeff Baxter, he was one of them also. I wish I could have called him earlier. Jeff Baxter was one of the guys, and I went to high school with Jeff Baxter. So, normally he would have been taking care of me, but he was in with the group with Adrian and Lenny. And again, I was just the rookie on the team.
What was Jeff's game like in high school?
You said, where did he go to high school?
What was his game like in high school?
Oh, Jeff was, people don't know. I thought Jeff was on the same level as Johnny Dawkins. Johnny Dawkins with DeMatha and both in DC. And Jeff was probably a better player, or just as good as Johnny Dawkins was in high school. That's what everybody talked about, Jeff Baxter, Johnny Dawkins. One went to Duke, one went to Maryland, but Jeff was, I mean, you ask anybody from that era, they remember Jeff Baxter, they remember Johnny Dawkins, and that was what all the talk was about at that time, during that era.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was the 82 Capital Classic is a game that sort of a lot of people look at as sort of Len Bias's breakout, because it was, in that game, it was him and Johnny Dawkins that were the biggest stars. And Jeff was on the roster, but wasn't as much of a contributor at the time. And there were a few other guys. And obviously, I think the USA team had Brad Doherty and a couple others. But
it was a strong team. In a big era for players coming out of school that year. And in the area also, a lot of good players in that class of, was that class of 82.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one thing that Jeff and Walt and Gerard Mustaf talked about was the talent in the area, which, so like you could walk around and just, because there was a court on South Campus at the time, and you could just show up at any point to that court, and there was just so much talent in the area. You could get competition from like regular students on that court.
Yeah, it's true. And as players at the university at the time, if you walked out there, you were taking a risk of your reputation, because you never knew who was going to be there and show up. And if you went, you better be ready to play, because again, this is before social media era. So, if you didn't do well on that court, it got back to a lot of people very quickly. So, if you went, they warned me, say, if you're going to go, you better go and be ready to play. Don't go over there thinking it's just going to be a walk-through playground type of game. These guys will be ready to play. You don't know who's going to be there. But it's fun days, fun times.
Walt Williams told the story. He's told it a few times, but he told it earlier on the stream that, so his sister was doing some sort of open house day at Maryland. And so instead of waiting in line at the administration building, he went down to that court, and Len Bias was there, and his team needed a fifth somehow. I don't know how Len's team wouldn't have enough. Like, not enough guys would want to play with Len. But like Walt Williams just showed up and immediately he's running with Len. And this is his idol at the time.
Yeah. It's I mean, you know, guys like Walt from that era that came up watching Lenny play, you know, Ben Coleman, Albert King, they watched those guys play coming up and they wanted to be a part of that. You know, I talked about earlier, I think I spoke to you about earlier that, you know, growing up, you know, you ever went to the playground and you always went, there's a player you wanted to be. I wanted to be Dr. J. You know, you wanted to be whoever was the big time player at the time. As I got closer to getting ready to go to the University of Maryland, you go to the playground, people say, I want to be Len Bias, I want to be Albert King. I want to be one of those guys. I want to be Ernie Graham. And those are the moments and times you think back and say, yeah, this is, I was a part of that coming up. And that's what made us want to come to the University of Maryland. You watch those guys play and you want to be a part of that.
Well, thank you for hopping on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks. Yeah, I just couldn't make it earlier.
No problem.
It was better for me to not get in trouble and do this than to come on and keep peace at the home.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Len Elmore said. He said he wanted to come on, but he would get in trouble if he came on Mother's Day.
Yeah, exactly.
Ernie too, I think.
Yeah.
But thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming.
All right. See you later.
See you.
And thank you to everyone for tuning in. I guess we'll wrap it up here, but thank you all so much for joining. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a good time. Len Bias feature was already in the works. It should be on to Studio Times later this week. So.
And make sure you check out Walt and Tony's book.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, guys.